I think we'll go ahead and get started to make best use of everybody's time tonight. This is there's a lot to comprehensive planning, so we wanted to make sure we have plenty of time for questions and some of the interactive pieces of tonight. So my name's Cliff Kahili. I'm the city manager for the city of Mesquite, and I wanted to thank everyone for taking the time out tonight. This is a very important piece of our effort to move Mesquite forward. And comprehensive planning, it's probably not the most exciting when you hear about it, but if you really dive into it, what we are doing tonight is really planning for the future, and not just for the next few years, but 5, 10, 15, even 20 and 30 years into the future on how Mesquite's going to grow and what Mesquite will develop like. So before we get too far into it, I just want to remind everyone that we are recording this. It will be put out on the website. It's not live tonight, but anytime you have a question and all that, we want to make sure that you speak up, and we have a microphone available. So if you will wait for the question, have the microphone in hand so we can make sure that the audience listening in can hear what you're saying. Also want to introduce some of our council members who are here tonight. We have Mayor Stan Pickett and Councilmember Dan Alleman, and I think the ideas, what y'all say tonight, will be presented to the council at and the P&Z board commission next Tuesday. They have a joint meeting next Tuesday, so this information they get tonight will help them in their as we move the project forward. And, I mentioned that it's an important piece of our efforts in our community. And really, you need a plan to kind of guide you on where you're going and what you're going to do. And when it comes to development, it's a very important to know what we're doing and that it meets the community's expectations. And it needs to be citizen-driven. These plans can't be developed by staff or just by council alone. It truly needs to be done with citizen input, and that's why tonight is important to have you as citizens here to provide that input and help guide the council as they move forward. As with any plan, it needs to be flexible. This is basically a guideline. When you see a dot or a color on a map, it doesn't mean that that's exactly what's going to be there. As you all realize, the community changes and the needs change. So that's why a lot of this plan will have strategies, and our team will go into a little bit more tonight about what these strategies are and what they mean and how they make this plan beneficial to the community. So basically, tonight, I really want to encourage everyone to provide your open and honest feedback. If we have gone off in the wrong direction, we need to know, and so we can put the brakes on and go back and revisit. Hopefully, you don't feel that way. Hopefully, we've done a really good job up to this point. But if you feel we've gone wrong, let us know, and be open and ask the questions. We've got a lot of experts here tonight, and so we want to feel free to put them to the test. And then if you're afraid to ask a question on camera or with the microphone, but still want to ask, all of the staff who are here tonight will be here until the last person leaves. We want to make sure that all of the discussions are had, all of the questions are answered, and you leave here feeling like you have no question left unanswered. With that, I am going to pass the baton to Jeff Armstrong, our Director of Planning and Development. So, Jeff, take it away.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome. We're really glad you're here. I think Mr. Kahili did a great job of kind of teeing up tonight and the importance of what we're doing here. We do have a team of people here, like he said, that you can visit with afterwards. Real good representation from our planning staff, of course. We have someone from economic development. We have some people from our marketing and communications department and so forth. So there's some staff people here, and we can visit with you, of course, during the meeting, but afterwards as well. We started on this process several months ago, and at the beginning of that, we engaged Friesen Nichols, a consulting firm, to help us with this project. And so I'll introduce those folks, and they're really going to run things for us tonight. So Shad Como, he is the kind of the project lead with the consulting firm. Alexis Garcia, she's doing a lot of the day-to-day serious work on the thing. And I'm sorry, Colton Wayman, I'm sorry. Colton hasn't been with us near as much as the others have, and I apologize for that. So anyway, again, we're really happy you're here, and feel free to ask us questions. I will point out that there are some copies on the back table of the plan if you want to browse it a little bit, and you have time to look at boards and things, and the consultants will talk about that. But the draft plan is on our website. And I think you'll see a slide that shows that, but it is at www.cityofmesquite.com/comp plan, and you'll see that on one of these slides here in a little bit. But feel free to get on the website, look at the draft plan after tonight if you want to learn more about it. And there's a link there where you can send us comments through email by clicking on that. So after tonight, if you think of things, feel free to take advantage of that and let us know your thoughts, your concerns, your praises, whatever you have to say. We want to hear it. So with that, I will turn it over to Shad, and again, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Jeff. Good evening. Hope everyone's doing well. Good to see you all this afternoon. As I said last night, we won't keep you too long, but I think 11 o'clock p.m. is pretty good. But just kidding, we're going to go through a brief presentation. And as the city manager mentioned, we'll have some questions and answers. And then we really like you to get to dive in a little bit deeper into the boards that we have here, that you can see the information a lot closer. And you can take your time and peruse through that a little bit. I'm just going to go through a quick overview of the comprehensive plan. If you hadn't been with us since the beginning of the process, comprehensive plan is a document that cities put together that helps them to plan for the future, typically about 10 to 20 years out. It's also a document, if you know this, how the city functions and operates, there are other plans and documents that over the years have been put together. So it helps to bring all of that information together and gives the city a guide as they move into the future. It's not anything that can't be changed. It's a fluid document. So if something in the market changes next year and it changes the direction of the plan or the vision a little bit, then amendments can be made to the document. But it's really a great tool that cities use to help guide their development. These were the elements that are in the comprehensive plan that we'll be reviewing tonight: future land use, mobility and circulation, housing and neighborhood, community design and character, and then public safety and health. The planning process that we went through, and I'll go through a little bit more specific here in a few seconds, but the first phase, if you will, involved a lot of data gathering. So we had community meetings, we met with stakeholders, we met with planning and zoning, city council. We had a survey that was online where about 300 or so people responded to that survey, providing information. All of that input you'll see help to feed into the plan. So as the city manager mentioned earlier, the input that you all gave us throughout the process, you'll see reflected throughout the document. Phase 2 is where we started to dig a little bit deeper into the various elements of the plan. And so when we engaged the stakeholders and city leadership, we had workshops where we pulled out maps and we did various exercises, interactive exercises, just to dig a little bit more deeper. If there were some things that came out during the public engagement and input portion of the plan that we needed to kind of figure out a little bit more. And during this phase is where that work happened. And then the phase 3, the phase that we're in now, the draft plan and the implementation portion of the plan. We're presenting that information. We'll be presenting this to City Council and Planning and Zoning on next week as well. So this is the various events and meetings that we had throughout the process. We started back in September of last year at the Taste and Trade. If you were there, we had a booth. Hope you got some corn dogs. I see some people shaking their heads. We had corn dogs, and we had a large board that talked about the vision of the community and what is your vision for Mesquite. And people were able to give their input. We had stakeholder meetings, the online survey, various staff workshops, city leadership workshops throughout the process. And so now we're here today wrapping up the process, but also presenting the information that was put together. And this is just a few snapshots of some of those meetings that we had earlier in the process. So from all of the information that we gathered, and it was a lot of information and a lot of great detailed information, there were some themes and some patterns that started to bubble to the top. And so those themes and patterns, we translated and we turned those into guiding principles. So guiding principles, if you will, are essentially goals of the plan. They're broad and they're high level, but they give direction to the recommendations that you'll see presented tonight. And so the themes that bubble to the top, you'll see here listed here: identity, safety, housing, infrastructure, connectivity, redevelopment, and entertainment. And I'll go ahead and read through these for you, and we do have them in the back so you can take a closer look. But the first guiding principle was to establish a unique identity that reflects Mesquite's character and enhances its aesthetics and celebrates its neighborhoods through urban design, branding, and historic preservation. Safety, promote community safety and crime prevention through environmental design and public safety initiatives. Housing, encourage a variety of quality residential development that meets the current and future housing needs of the community. Infrastructure, maintain and build quality infrastructure and roads to attract and support existing and new development. Connectivity, provide safe multimodal mobility options to connect people to employment, amenities, and neighborhoods both locally and regionally. Redevelopment, develop strategies to encourage revitalization in older residential and commercial areas. And the last one, entertainment, create and or encourage a variety of destination entertainment venues and events in Mesquite. So again, the information that we receive from the community, from city leadership and staff, stakeholders, helped to develop these guiding principles. These were presented at one of the meetings that we had with city leadership, and these were the guiding principles that we moved forward with as we developed the plan. So I'll go through a summary of each chapter and each element of the plan. And this is the website, again, if you'd like to download the draft copy of the plan, www.cityofmesquite.com/comp plan. So Chapter 1 was more so of an introduction to the comprehensive plan, and it also established the baseline, if you will, or the community snapshot, the existing conditions of Mesquite presently. So we looked at the community profile, which featured demographics. We have a summary of the community input, so you can see it wrapped up visually within this section, and then the guiding principles. So this kind of gives you a snapshot in time of what Mesquite is today and is presently. And this information served as our baseline as we moved forward to develop the remaining implementation recommendations and strategies. So we had demographics and stats you'll see there, looking from everything from population to median age, housing type, household income. The community input summary had several pages of that summary. You can see the questions that were asked in the surveys, the questions that were asked at the community meeting. We had boards similar to these where people were able to either place dots or make comments or place notes on various boards. And so this information is summarized here. And so as we moved into Chapter 2, the future land use chapter, this is one of the chapters and one of the elements of a comprehensive plan that is very important to many communities because it sets the stage for the future land use. It looks at what vacant areas that may be currently vacant now or areas that may be going through redevelopment, what they can be envisioned in the future. And again, as it was mentioned earlier, because it designates a use on the future land use that doesn't put it into stone. It's not written in stone. It can be changed. It can be modified, but it helps to guide the future development, especially in those areas where it's currently vacant and very little plans have been made. We also looked at special planning areas within this plan, and so those special area plans, you'll see that they're kind of bubbled out on the future land use plan, and within each of those special planning areas, there are an additional set of strategies and vision for that area. Those areas are designated as special planning areas because there are some unique situations are going on in some of them. Some of them have been around for a while and moving into redevelopment, and some of them are facing development now. And so we pull those special areas out, and you'll see those designated, and we'll go through a few of those here in a few seconds. So this is the existing land use map. So the land uses that exist today in Mesquite are color-coded here. And so you'll see that there are some areas that are blank or the white space. Those are areas that aren't currently developed now. And you'll see the other areas that are developed. I'll just quickly point out just a few of the colors just so you'll have a good understanding. The yellow color typically refers to single-family residential. The purple color designates industrial land use. The blue is a public type use. It could be either a city facility. In this case, it also includes churches and schools as well. And then the red is the retail, and commercial is the darker red. So when we look at the future land use, and I'll just kind of flip through this a little bit so you can kind of see the difference there. You'll see those white areas that are now filled in with development. Some of them are designated as special planning areas, and then some of them remain as they are today for the most part. So special planning areas, as I mentioned earlier, and Alexis is going to come and talk about the vision of each one of these real briefly, just so you'll have an idea. But again, these were areas that we pulled out as special areas, notating that they do need a little bit more strategies, some more planning, a deeper dive. And so we want to make sure that they are recognized, and you'll see a recommendation or strategy related to these a little bit further.
Thank you. So through this process, certain areas were designated to look further into. They were designated either because they deserved a little more focus for redevelopment or maybe for new development. You'll see here that we have 7 special planning areas. The first being Town East and Motley. As many of you know, that's kind of an older area. So the vision for that certain intersection is to create a more revitalized shopping area. Keep that neighborhood flavor and that neighborhood feel, but have new life into that area, new commercial development that really serves the surrounding neighborhood. Then you have the downtown area, and that designation is to the vision for that area is to have a revitalized downtown, an area that brings downtown back to its former glory. And as many of you may know, there's certain processes and initiatives going on right now to make that happen, new renovations. So as we build on that momentum, the vision in this plan can help to drive that forward. The vision for Truman Heights is to also revitalize that area so that it can have its former glory. Some of the areas need improved walking areas, improved shopping centers, but really just to focus in a little more and have a revitalized neighborhood. Then you have the US 80 special planning area. This area is divided by US 80 into a northern and southern section. In the northern section, the vision is to have a industrial type district. Many of the uses in that area are currently industrial. So creating more of a district designation there so that more investment can go in there. And also to add in new office uses into the vacant areas. On the southern portion, with the new access from the frontage road, the vision is to create a premier location for an office campus type use. Really take advantage of that corner so that as traffic is coming through, businesses can really take advantage of that location. The Trinity Point special planning area is currently mostly vacant. So going forward, there's really a vision for what the area can be. We referenced a lot of the information from the visioning exercise that some of you may have been a part of. So we're creating a place to live, work, and play, a mixed-use area that supports both residential uses, commercial uses, office uses, and really taking advantage of that corridor with gateways from both the east and the west to take advantage of all that traffic. Then you have the Gus Thomason corridor. The vision for this area is to revitalize that existing shopping center, to create a more walkable and integrated, revitalized shopping area that may integrate other uses in the area, but really to bring it back to its former glory. And then you have the Town East area. We've all been there. It's one of the most successful areas in the city. We have Town East Mall and major shopping, and we really just want to maintain that. We want to make sure that this area maintains its successes and stays the thriving shopping area it is. And we also want to make sure that in the future it's able to evolve and grow with the changing needs of the market and of the community. So these special planning areas are really just setting the stage for further initiatives to take place in that area to really bring them to what they should be. So I'm going to turn it back over to Chef.
So as we go through each one of these elements, we'll just highlight a couple of strategies from each section. The full list of strategies you'll see behind you at the implementation table, where you can look at them a little closer and you can see each one. We have them divided by each element, each chapter within the plan, so that you can easily identify them, and we'll go through a little bit more of that detail later. But one of the ones we're highlighting is to create a small area program with the methodology and criteria for prioritizing planning areas and applying the strategies and principles of the comprehensive plan with a greater degree of detail for a defined area, neighborhood, or corridor. So this strategy really speaks to and helps to promote the special areas that we just talked about. Sometimes when you look at the city as a whole, there are some areas that they really do deserve more planning, more particular strategies, and so we want to make sure that those areas are properly addressed. So perhaps there is a small area or special area program where the city could look at these areas. Either every other year they do one or two or something along those lines, but really just focusing on and making sure that those areas are being addressed. And then the other one is to develop a diagnostic report that outlines deficiencies and opportunities to better align land use regulations with the updated comprehensive plan. So as the comprehensive plan is creating that vision for the community, we want to make sure that the existing regulations and ordinances that are in place, that they really help to promote the vision, so that they aren't, forces working against each other. Chapter 3, Housing and Neighborhoods. These are a few components within this chapter, recent and projected housing trends, regionally, also looking at housing, neighborhood housing conditions, programs, grants and resources, and some development guidelines. So this one map that you'll see within this chapter looks at, it divides the city into three, the city's neighborhoods into three categories. The preservation or preserve category, restore and rehabilitate. And so as you look at this map, you'll see these areas that are outlined. The preserve are those neighborhoods that are in good condition and health currently. It may be some new subdivisions or some subdivisions that may be either 0 to 5 years old, but they're new. They hadn't started experiencing some of the things that older neighborhoods have, and so those are designated. The restore neighborhoods that are beginning to show some wear and tear. Those may be those neighborhoods that are 5 years, 5 to 10 years. And the rehabilitate are neighborhoods with homes that have exceeded the useful life and may be structurally compromised. And so this map helps to identify these areas and to focus any efforts that are needed to make sure that your neighborhoods are maintained as they continue to age. Mesquite, as you look at this map here, you'll see a lot of areas that are in green, which is a great thing. That means that there are neighborhoods, and not all these neighborhoods here are just starting off. Some of them have been established, but they're in good health, they're in good condition, and so there aren't many areas that need to be focused on. But we just wanted to make sure that those that do need focus, that they are identified. So a couple of strategies highlighted from this section is to create and maintain a database of neighborhood conditions to better direct funding resources for housing and neighborhood improvements. So having that database and having that information in front of you, knowing what each neighborhood's condition is a resource that staff can use so that they can make sure that they are dispersing resources in the proper areas. The other is to encourage residential developers to design subdivisions to incorporate the character that enhances Mesquite's community theme through education and possible incentives. So last night we had a stakeholder meeting, and there were a couple of residential developers there. And they're coming up with some great ideas and some great products within the community. And so we just want to make sure that developers understand the vision of Mesquite, what Mesquite expects out of their neighborhoods, and working with those developers so that they can help promote Mesquite's character as they develop their various communities. There were residential developers that are open to new ideas and doing new things, and so we want to make sure that that dialogue between the city and those developers remain open. Chapter 4, mobility and circulation, looking at existing networks and amenities, regional mobility plans, the existing thoroughfare plan, and some network recommendations. This is a snapshot map of the existing thoroughfare plan as it is today. And you'll see that there have been several amendments throughout the years, and the recent being in May of last year, 2018. And so with the future land use plan, just making sure that the thoroughfare plan matches that we have roadways in the proper locations. If we see and we know that there are new developments coming, but their access is limited and things of that nature, we want to make sure that it's addressed through the thoroughfare plan so those roadways could be designed properly, and developers understand when they do their portions or pieces of the network that they understand what the expectations are. And so we also looked at bike and pedestrian facilities, and this is actually a board that's back there, so you could take a look a little closer. Sidewalk enhancement, bike enhancements, also looking at transportation alternatives. And then we also wanted to call out the TxDOT projects that are currently and are planned for the city of Mesquite. And so as you look at that table there on the right, you'll notice that there are 16 projects that are underway or beginning soon. And if you look at that total, there are 38. So there is a lot of investment being made within the community by this transportation authority, and so that's a good thing. That tells us that it's a lot that's still worth investing in Mesquite, and that the community as well as the regional and the state transportation authority is recognizing in making sure that connectivity is a part of the region. So looking at a couple of the highlighted strategies from this section explore opportunities to implement additional transportation options, such as a city circulator system to provide connectivity and accessibility to major points of interest within the city. Cities similar to Mesquite that may be not a part of a DART system or a mass transit system, there are still people within the community that need access to transportation, and so there are other alternatives out there outside of mass transit that can be incorporated within the community to provide transportation services to individuals. Also identify ideal locations and implement sidewalks along key local streets and all collector and arterial streets leading from neighborhoods to all parks, trails within 1/2 mile walking distance. So as you know, the city has done a great job with parks and creating trails and connections, and so we want to make sure that that continues. And it was also something we heard within the public input. People wanted to make sure that they're connected by various amenities, and so identifying those areas that may be disconnected and making sure that they're a part of that broader network is important. Community design and character. So within this section of the plan, we look at the community character, the community's image, how do you maintain it, image, how do you manage it, and also some design regulations. Again, this is a board that you can view closer in the back, looking at signage and branding, non-residential design, which refers to any retail, commercial, or office-type development, and then also neighborhoods as well. This map shows the existing and also the future gateways within the community. Alexis touched on it earlier. You'll see there on the east side of 20, there's a designation for a future gateway. So we just wanted to show where those existing gateways are and where potential future gateways could be. So when people drive through your city, when residents drive through the city, they have a sense of arrival. They know where they are. And it's very important for the community's image and branding as well. And these gateways are not always necessarily large gateways. Sometimes there are secondary gateways, which are smaller gateways that also serve the same purpose of identifying or announcing arrival into a special area. A couple of highlighted strategies from this section is to develop and maintain a comprehensive branding and signage master plan to identify opportunities for branding and plan for strategic implementation based on available funding. So again, from the input that we heard earlier in the process, and we also went through an exercise where we wanted to find out what do the residents and what do other people, how do they brand Mesquite? What do they know Mesquite for? And so the comprehensive branding and signage plan will help to bring all of that in so you have one cohesive message and branding for your city versus having maybe certain colors or materials used for certain amenities and gateways. This kind of brings it all within one cohesive plan so that you have one image and brand for your community. Also develop a recognition/reward program to encourage business owners to enhance their properties through landscaping and other design aesthetics. If I haven't mentioned this yet, the city isn't the only organization that's going to be responsible for implementing the comprehensive plan. Residents and business owners and developers as well help to all put into that and help to implement the vision. And so this strategy really speaks to and really encourages business owners to enhance their properties maybe through landscaping and other design aesthetics, so that they can contribute to that community character. A lot of times when you go to a community, the development that you see there, the branding that you see there, the gateways that you see there really leaves an impression on you, and you leave away with an impression. So we want to make sure that that impression is positive in Mesquite. And so this is a way to just show some recognition. It could be something as simple as inviting them to a council meeting and recognizing them for the work that they've done with their properties and contributing to that character of Mesquite. And then Chapter 6 is public safety and health, looking at the existing conditions, transportation and recreation, community resources, safety through community design. Public safety and health is one of those things that communities are starting to pay more close attention to. Even us as individuals in the society that we live in, you notice that people are more health conscious and making sure that their communities are safe. So there are some strategies that we have that can help contribute to that. So looking at the transportation and recreation, again, this is a board back there as well that you could take a closer look at. You'll notice that on that map there, you'll see those green areas that designate parks. So you'll see that they are dispersed throughout the community. And so every neighborhood that you see there is pretty well connected. And so we want to make sure that that continues. And you notice the white areas we talked about earlier, the area that is just starting to develop. We want to make sure that those areas are connected as well. Safety through community design. Could be something as simple as a business owner or a developer who may be putting up a commercial property, making sure that the landscaping that they put out is properly located. It doesn't create areas where people can potentially hide or disturb their visibility if they're exiting a property. So it all helps to play into the safety of a community. Activated areas are those areas where people frequent often. And so we know that when you have areas where people are always congregating, they frequent often, those areas are considered safe areas. And then also looking at community resources, those existing community resources, and how people are connected to those, and making sure that they have access to healthy foods and things of that nature. A couple of highlight strategies here is to conduct a health impact assessment to inform planning and promote public health. So this is just a tool to help to identify the existing things that you have related to health and how they impact your community and where those deficiencies might be. So if there's a park in the area that may not be there, that may be needed, or if there's a food desert, and we know that the city has, with some recent initiatives, have worked on that to help eliminate those food deserts, but things of that nature, it helps to identify that so the city can have a good idea of what what the health is of their city and where improvements are needed. Promote a healthy community by providing agent in place and residential development designs by allowing a variety of housing types and housing units. Again, this was one of the comments that we heard last night from some of the residential developers, that they are starting to create products where they have a variety of housing types. So if you grew up in Mesquite, or if you've been a long-time resident of Mesquite and you don't want to go anywhere, you want to live here for the rest of your life, we want to make sure that there are housing types available for you to be able to do that. I know me personally, the home I live in today, when I'm 80, hopefully one day, that I don't want to climb up any stairs. And so what are there other variety of housing types where you can move so you can still live in the city of Mesquite and enjoy your surroundings, but to do so in something that's more convenient and comfortable for you. And finally, the last chapter is the implementation plan, if you will. It talks about the roles of implementation and how the plan is implemented. Comprehensive plan education, how do you educate the community, how you educate your staff. Updating, it gives guidelines to updating the plan when the plan should be updated. And then the bigger portion of this chapter is the implementation plan or the implementation tables that you see here with these 4 boards behind you. And so this wraps up all of the strategies from each section within the plan. It also gives the guiding principles and how those connect within the plan. So remember, at the beginning of the plan, and from all the input and the themes, the guiding principles were developed. They served as that foundation from which all the strategies were springboarded from. And so you'll see how they connect with the various guiding principles. The responsible parties, these are the entities or the organizations that help to implement this particular strategy. But again, it's not all of the parties that could be contributing to this particular strategy. It's just the ones that are responsible for help getting it started. And then it also looks at the time frame. And we also have the explanation of the implementation tables back there as well. But 1 clock refers to those short-term strategies, those things that can be accomplished within 0 to 5 years. The 2 clocks represent those strategies that can be accomplished between 5 and 10 years. And the 3 clocks represent long-term strategies or strategies that is ongoing, that is never ending. And so this table brings everything together so you can see how they relate to each element of the plan and how they relate to the guiding principles, and pretty much just summarizes all the strategies within the comprehensive plan. So if you don't feel like reading through everything, which we encourage you to read through everything, you can jump to the back of the plan and look at the strategies, and it'll help you to visualize what the vision for Mesquite is. So before I move forward, we're going to allow you all to view the boards and to go into those a little bit deeper, and we'll be available and we'll be by those boards. So if you have some questions that you'd like to ask us, we'll be there to answer those. But as the city manager mentioned earlier, we want to give you an opportunity to ask some questions now before we end the formal presentation. Questions or comments?
My question revolves around the special areas, Town East. I know that the school district and the city have always worked well together in planning and assessing needs, and things are going on. But this is one of our larger high schools that's going to be right in the middle of all the development, commercial, offices, and retail. And then it's going to have more and more traffic over there. I just want to make sure that as they're addressing that area, that the school district and the city work together to try to make sure that we minimize safety issues with the students as well as the citizens that are driving through there, and also develop things where we separate some of those businesses from the schools to kind of minimize students kind of coming through all the buildings and through the dots and everything else. So I appreciate that be brought in the play.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate the hard work that you guys did on this. I know it's not an easy process to put this together. I had a couple of things for you. Do you guys know what the average age is of the responders to the survey, the data you gathered? Do you know any idea what the average age was of the responder?
We didn't ask a question for the average age. I think we asked a question about how long have you lived in the community, and that should be summarized in that first section of the plan.
Okay. Was there any interaction at all during the planning process with any college students or maybe some high school seniors or juniors, anything like that, to kind of see what they envision the city like? Because this is a 20-year outlook, so they're going to be in the prime of their lives at the time. I was just curious if any of their input was taken into account.
We had a variety of age groups that did take the survey. We didn't specifically go into the schools and do anything, but the engagement and the survey was put out in various areas and it was open to various age groups.
Okay. And my last question, I saw that you had the different strategic areas and everything. Did we look at any specific amenities during this process, like maybe water parks or dog parks or anything like that, to see where those might fit into the future planning?
No, not specifically.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to piggyback on the school issue. Since I do work in the schools, specifically the high schools, I'm really concerned about the traffic on Town East, and yet y'all are planning on putting 3 fast food restaurants on that land that the school district sold, which will add to the congestion and add into that the new drivers at the high school. I'm really concerned for the safety along that stretch of Town East Boulevard. It's already congested. It already has a ton of fast food in and out places, and you're going to add more. I don't understand the benefit.
Yeah, and that's outside of the scope of the comprehensive plan, so I'll be happy to pass that.
And I'll be happy to go into more detail after when we break up. But whenever we do developments like this, we do take those factors into consideration. And with that particular development, we did use a traffic impact analysis that evaluated traffic flow and the different confluences of traffic in that area. That's why the developer had to improve that traffic signal. There are additional pedestrian features with that traffic signal that will go in to help the students leaving North Mesquite. The school district worked really well with us to put a fence along the backside to try to direct students to that signal. Right now, they tend to travel anywhere between LBJ and Gus Thomason when they cross the street. So we do take those things into consideration. The biggest problem we have is Town East and LBJ is one of the most popular retail areas in the Metroplex, and everyone wants to be within 100 yards of that intersection. And so sometimes congestion is good because it does promote more retail and commercial development. But we do take those traffic impact analysis very seriously, and we also do the signal timing throughout there to create a safer area to travel. So, yes, sir.
Cliff, another question for you.
Okay.
I understand that Kidz Quest is going to be revamped,
Yes, sir.
updated, so forth. And the wooden structure that's there is very old, and my kids played on it when they were pretty young. What my concern is that when you do this, when you tear down the old structure and revamp it and build something a little bit west of the existing one, that you preserve the trees.
Oh.
I talked to the Parks and Recreation folks the other day, and he was saying that to me that some of the trees are going to be removed. I'd hate to see that, though some of them are very old, especially on the north side. And everybody likes trees, and it healthy-wise, it really helps us. So my concern is that you would make allowances for preserving the trees and build around them. You notice there are some structures that the wood can be cut to leave the tree there, and which makes a nice aesthetic look to the park. So that's my concern.
I appreciate that, and our design team really took that into consideration. And what we're doing is we're incorporating the playground into the larger trees that are to the south of the playground, and to make those a part of the play area. We did have to lose a few trees because it is the most popular playground, and parking has been an issue. So as we developed the new parking lot, we did have to remove some trees. But just beyond the park and around the park, we are going to establish new trees. We follow our tree preservation ordinance, so for every caliper inch that we lose in the process, we're going to replant inch per inch. So, and just be in different areas. But thank you for that consideration, and it was top of mind when we designed the park. Oh, we'll go.
Yeah. My question is, you're talking about all the traffic around Town East. Why did you go from 6 lanes of traffic going down to 4 lanes of traffic?
On Gus Thomason?
Thompson.
When we did
Between 80 and Town East.
When we did our analysis of the traffic and looked at all future potential development that could occur in that area and the maximum capacity of the roadway, the 4-lane section will accommodate that amount of traffic. And what we're doing with the new design is we're creating longer turn bays, better design of intersections where you really have the congestion. So we'll be able to move traffic through there easier than we can now with 6 lanes with the 4-lane section. If you drive out there now, several of those lanes aren't used except for 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. just during the peak rush hour.
And definitely through Christmas season, Town East is one of the busiest roads. And when they have accidents on 635, they go off on Gus Thompson, and it is packed.
Yes, and it can accommodate a lot of that traffic, but you put 100,000 cars anywhere, they're going to have congestion.
It just seems like it's not really progression when you go from 6 lanes to 4 lanes.
It was also, we studied it very hard, and we wanted to make sure we were making the best use of the tax dollars that we were using, along with making sure we did something that made sense instead of overbuilding a roadway that didn't need to be at that capacity.
I have a couple questions. One about the special planning break-off groups that go for, like there's one for Truman, there's one for Gus Thomason, there's one for 80, there's one for Town East, there's several of them. But 80, there are 4 neighborhoods that go on either side of it. And then while you're speaking of it, I heard you talking about the business development and restoring it to former glory and things like that. But we've got neighborhoods that abut to those communities, those business development structures. What's the game plan for preserving the communities, making sure that they continue to grow, that they don't suffer because of this industrial growth? Because we do need it for infrastructure, but personally, I'm not willing to sacrifice a community for that industrial growth.
Right. So the special planning areas, again, as we mentioned, that they need to be looked at a little closer. So the strategy I talked about earlier about creating this small area or special area program, so you can look at those planning areas as you plan for them. So when you start digging into that process or go through the process of developing or looking at strategies for those areas, that's when you'll want to engage those neighborhoods, engage business owners, and then that's when you'll start having that dialogue about how do you preserve that and make sure. So the comprehensive plan didn't go into detail within those special planning areas. We pulled them out, recognizing that there are some special conditions in some of those areas, and we could be going through this comprehensive plan process for a lot longer if we dug into all the weeds of it. So that's kind of why they called out. But during that time, when they go through a special plan, if it goes through a special plan, then that's when neighborhoods, business owners will all be engaged.
Because there's about $3 billion being thrown at those around the city. And so if we wait for a while to get those special planning groups up and rolling, some of those areas are going to miss at least the first billion that comes out. Just looking at the map, the first billion comes out in the first 5 years, and some of it's already enrolling in place. But if we're going to wait to do these special planning places, that means that those neighborhoods will miss out on that because they won't be addressed yet. It just won't be on the timeline.
Right. So it would be encouraged if these areas do move forward into doing special plans, that they be prioritized.
How do you make sure that happens?
How do I make sure that it happens? Yeah.
Awesome. And then the second one is the mobility. I was looking at the connector and the idea of building short of saying public transportation, which I like. But having that kind of connector system as a method of alleviating some of the people that are on foot, like at the end of movies at AMC 30, you have kids who need a way to get from place to place, not just kids, but other people too, a way to move people around the city so that we don't get left behind as we grow into a bigger city, because we're not a baby city anymore. We've got lots and lots of people who need to get lots and lots of places. What does that look like? Sorry.
Just so I answer the question correctly, you're asking what does a transportation system look like based on this? We don't know. This is a guide to take us down those steps. And, with transportation, we're, trying to figure that out. Now, that was a couple public meetings ago, a couple weeks ago when we had that one. And so we're working towards those things. This plan doesn't really provide those specifics. It just provides those guidelines of where are these nodes going to be that people are going to gather, and then we take the transportation plan and help move those people, whether it's with trails, with buses, with Uber type service, those types of things. So we take this as the guide and marry our transportation plans and our transit plans on top of that.
I think it would be a good idea if we could include those alternatives in the plan for better planning. Does that make sense? So that you have your options for example, let's take Gus Thompson, right? Mm-hmm. And we have a high school that's letting out. We have a senior center that's coming. We have neighborhood members that are traveling up and down that road. I think part of the comprehensive plan should include ideas for transportation. If we're going to empower people to be walking, let's say that there's a walking trail there. If there's going to be a transportation stop, let's just put the idea of a stop strategically someplace on that street. If the students are walking out of school from the apartment complexes on Gus Thomason, what would that foot traffic look like? Is there any way to put a place for ideas inside the plan without waiting until... I realize you said it's fluid and it can be changed at any time.
I'll let Shad answer your question more specifically about how that involves in this plan. But what the city embarks on a regular basis, in addition to a land use plan, which this is about land use, we also have what we're now calling a mobility plan. It used to be called a thoroughfare plan, which was just roadways. But now we want it to be a mobility plan that encompasses trails, where sidewalk connections, where our pedestrian crosswalks go on our major thoroughfares. And then how does it all interact with a transit system of some sort that we have to evolve over the next 5 to 10 years as well. So, and I'll let you talk about the plan.
Yeah, so within a plan, we do identify, this is page 108. We talk about transportation alternatives. It talks about the circulator system. It talks about mobility on demand. And then you look at the strategies on page 109. So the comprehensive plan, if you will, it helps to identify a lot of these things that you all are bringing up. Without going through the process, the city has no way of knowing, some of these areas and where to look and dig deeper. And so the comprehensive plan kind of brings that to the top. And so we list it and identify it in here. We give some ideas and strategies through the comprehensive plan. But again, a lot of things, the comprehensive plan just doesn't go into detail because that's what it is. It's a high-level guide for the city. Then the next step is to go into more detail to start providing solutions for those various issues or deficiencies in the sites, in the transportation network or pedestrian network and things of that nature.
So if we want folks to buy into it or participate in it, maybe should have some of the concerns that we're bringing up today, traffic, alleviation of that. Maybe you can include some of that into the plan to get more buy-in. Does that make sense and more participation?
Well,
I like the idea that you have these mobility plans. I was like, that's an amazing idea. But it's not any good if you're the only one that know about it. You see what I mean? So if we got the plan, maybe we can spread that word or put a little bit of it in the plan.
I would just point out that all of these other plans that we have are referenced in there. And so this is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Like I said, with the mobility plan, there's a park use plan. We're even embarking on a library plan to figure out what we're going to do with libraries as we grow. So I understand what you're trying to get to when it comes to trying to really put a lot of stuff in this. But I think if we put too many specifics of plans, it'll be such a large document that it will never really work. So that's why we try to take that mobility plan and keep it as a separate plan. But we use the land use assumptions and the strategies here to help guide, okay, so we're projecting this business use in this location. Well, what kind of roadway use is going to need to be part of that? Well, we use this document for the basis of our parks plan and our mobility plan. That's why we're doing this one first. But I understand your point about making sure people understand. And there is a section in that talks about all of our other plans, and we can work to really make sure that people understand how this works in the big puzzle.
So what are we tasked with tonight? To just look at it, provide you some feedback?
Yeah, so tonight was an opportunity for you all to hear. So if you were here, was it October of 2018, if you took the survey, there were a lot of things asked, a lot of input, and so that input was taken into consideration. And some of the things you were mentioning, if you look at the summary, for example, page 16, 47.5% people said, when we asked what's your number one desire for Mesquite, 47.5% people said improve older, rundown areas of the city and aesthetics. So we did open it up, the dialogue, and we didn't hide anything. So all the input that we received is summarized here, which again, the input helped to develop most of these strategies within the plan. We don't as professionals, we do look at it professionally, and we create things and ideas in the plan, but we also want to make sure that the input that we heard, that is also reflected in the plan, because this, at the end of the day, we don't live in this community, you all live in this community, so we want to make sure that this plan is tailored for you so that you are creating the vision that you want for your community.
I remember taking the survey.
Yeah, so tonight is to present the plan development and how we went through the process and how we came up with this document.
So in the plan, does it list who the stakeholders are? Are the stakeholders listed? I mean, you mentioned that stakeholders had part of the input for the plan. Are they listed in there? Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
So if there aren't any, okay.
Any other questions? We want to get to the interactive portion here in a second, but before we get to that, I'd like, as we do with most of our town hall meetings, is to invite our council members to say a few words. So, Leah, do you want to hand the microphone, and we'll start with Mr. Aleman? Oh, do we need to go to here? Okay. Y'all have to come up here then. Sorry.
I'll keep my comments brief, but I do want to tell the presenters here tonight, you all did a fantastic job. Appreciate your work and what you've been doing. I made a comment to the mayor. I remember 3.5 years ago, I believe, when I first got onto the council, that our mayor at one of our retreats brought up this idea of how we need to look ahead into the future of our city, 15, 20 years. And he reminded me that he had been sharing that, but I thought that this was a thing that sparked this off to get this thing going, and I'm excited about it. You know, the Bible says, without a vision, the people perish for lack of knowledge, and we need this. We got to have this. The citizens are contributing to this, and they're helping with this, which is a great thing. A couple of things that I've been looking at primarily, and I've just started to glance through this, and I'm going to look at it more in depth, but one, of course, is the corridors and what we do with our corridors, because location is so huge for our city, and continuing to build the tax base of our city, we've got to have it. I think about Highway 80, and you think about all the traffic that goes through our city, people that are going to Forney, people that are going to Terrell, people that are coming back in, so much traffic that's coming through, and we've got to use that land out there when we're talking about 80 and 635 and use it in a way that's advantageous to our city. But the other thing that stands out to me also is, of course, neighborhood vitality and what we do with our neighborhoods. And I appreciate the work that Yolanda Wilson is doing. I think there's a lot more to be done with that, and we're going to see that happening as well. And, of course, the revitalization of our shopping centers, the older shopping centers, and how all that comes together. So I'm excited that you all are here and that you're contributing and for your comments and what you're sharing, because we need that. And this is our city, and we all need to take part together in what we share in seeing into the future 15, 20 years. So, again, to the presenters, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Councilman Noche?
Good evening. Thank you all for being here. Councilman Alleman was very complimentary of each and every one of you, as well as the team that put the presentation together. Alexis has a long history here with the city of Mesquite. It's just been fantastic throughout her youth and her career for the city. And so one of the concerns, I think, was mentioned about what do the young people think. Take some comfort. Alexis is quite the prognosticator for us in terms of that. She has lived it, learned it, and is now practicing what she preaches in terms of planning for the future. So what's interesting when I look around the room is the number of times each and every one of you participate in one of these community meetings. And I can't thank you enough for the dedication that you've had to continue to come to each of these meetings, to continue to participate, but more importantly, to engage. And that is extremely valuable to the success of this plan and the success of our city and the success of the community. So please keep up the continued engagement. We do listen. It does affect us. It does affect the decisions that get made. And you do have the ability to change and influence. So we appreciate all of the input and engagement. Thanks again for being here.
I'll get almost the last word. And, it's interesting as we go through what's called a comp plan, a comprehensive plan, because it's very difficult for me, that's been involved in local politics for as long as I have, to really grasp the fact that it's what it's called. It's land use. And I've listened and heard everything you've said tonight, and I think everything that you've commented on is absolutely valid. These are things we've got to consider. The trees, the traffic, all the things you brought up are great. But this process of looking into the future, looking at the land use, looking at what we think Mesquite needs and wants to be when it grows up, so to speak. We're one of the few inner ring suburbs that still has land to grow into. And many of you know that some of the older neighborhoods, we've been working for 15, 20 years trying to help revitalize, and we keep changing programs and adding people and trying to get some of our older neighborhoods. And you see the effect of that. You see the streets that have been rebuilt and a lot of the things that are going on. And this document is just a guide. And I'll give you a quick example, and then we'll get into the working things that we're going to be doing tonight. So land use. We lay out a plan. We say in this area of town, retail, this area school, this area park, this area whatever. And roadways are built and arranged because of what those projected land uses are. The best example that I've got is something we're fixing to start living right now, and that's out in the southeast quadrant of Fathom P. Lucas. We've worked on that road with projects needing to rebuild it, again, 10 or 15 years we've talked about it, and we kept moving monies off of Fathom P. Lucas's redo because of other things going on in the city. Well, lo and behold, what does the school district go and do? They're putting a 6th high school out there. That wasn't in the land use plan, guys. It really wasn't. But the guiding document was different than what the reality became. But that's what we're doing, and that's what you ask, what are you doing here tonight? Well, what you really come to do is look at some of the ideas that you've provided and other people throughout the community provided, and look at some of the future and look at and say, do I think that could work? That's about as simple as you can get it. Do I think that might work in that area in the future? The other thing is preservation, as you've heard. Is my neighborhood $2.8 million? It's mostly highway projects. That's mostly what that money is. But how's it going to impact your neighborhood? Exactly. That's exactly right. So look at these things, take a few minutes, and think, hey, somebody's thought this ought to be a park. Well, I don't know if that's really, I don't know that I think it ought to be a park. Maybe I think it ought to be a school, or I think it ought to be, a trail, or maybe it ought to be a restaurant or whatever. That's what we're kind of here to do. And I appreciate all your work you've heard. I say ditto to what the other gentlemen have told you about. We look at this with your input. And I think that's the key that sometimes we forget. This is not Freese and Nichols' plan. This is not the staff's plan. This isn't the council's plan. This is a combination of the citizens and all of these groups coming together. So that's what we're trying to do. What's it going to look like? What do you want to look like? I've said ever since I've been elected in office of any kind, what are we doing for the future of our city? What are we doing for this generation, the next generation, and quite frankly, the grandchildren on down the road? So anyway, preaching's over, although Dan does a better job of that than I do. Thank you all for being here tonight as well, and we appreciate the opportunity just to share with you a little bit. And come on back up and tell us what we're doing tonight. And by the way, good evening. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks to the mayor and council for those words. In terms of next steps, you'll see here, we'll be meeting with the City Council and Planning and Zoning on next Tuesday, and going through the plan and kind of talking about it, discussing it, and if it's anything that we need to adjust or rearrange, that would be discussed at that time. Following that, sometime in September and October, it'll be going forward for public hearing and be going to the Planning and Zoning Commission and also be going to City Council for potential adoption in October. Again, you can view the draft of the plan at this website. And so now I'll just kind of give you some instructions for the rest of the evening. We have a basket here and some comment cards. So if there's some comments or questions that you didn't get to ask, you can write those down and you can place them in that basket, and we will receive those and review those. You'll see the boards outlined along the back wall here where you can look. We'll be stationed over here so you can ask us questions then or give us any comments. And from now, we're really just kind of an open house. So if you want to go home, you can do that. But we invite you to stay and talk to the rest of the residents and ask us questions and give us any comments that you have. But we really, again, just echoing what others said, we really appreciate you all being here on tonight. It really shows that you are invested in your community and that you do care. And we also ask that you would spread the word as well. Let your neighbors and friends and church members know about the plan and where they can view it at. And you can also leave comments on the website as well. So again, thank you and have a good night.